Securing any environment requires multiple lines of defense, and it's usually pretty complex. And there's no difference when we are talking about containers. But luckily for us, tools like Azure Container Registry and Security Center provide the right features to secure our end-to-end container workflow quickly and easily. Let's do it. Hi everybody, and welcome back to CoderDave. Today, we are going to take a comprehensive look at how we can secure our end-to-end container workflow using the tools that Azure offers. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Just click on the subscribe button below and turn on the notifications so you will not miss any new videos. When it comes to containers and container security, there are many things you need to consider. How to create the images, where to store them, how to deploy your containers, what do you need to take care of after deployment, and so on and so forth. Those are just some of the most commonly asked questions. I've already talked in two of my previous videos about how I like to create my container images and how I normally deploy them in an enterprise scenario, so I won't cover that here. I highly encourage you to check them out. You have the link in the video description. What I will cover in this video instead is how to use Azure Container Registry, Azure Security Center, and Azure Policies to secure your containers and containers images when they leave your control environment, if you will. Azure Container Registry, in fact, recently announced the GA of features like private link, customer managed keys, dedicated data endpoints, Azure Policy integration, and the integration with Azure Security Center for scanning the container images. And in this video, I will focus on those features one by one. First off, let's talk about customer managed keys. By default, whenever you push your images to the Azure Container Registry, those are encrypted at rest using Microsoft managed keys. However, if you or your organization have stricter policies or just want to be in full control, you can enable the customer managed keys. Those keys are created and maintained in your own Azure Key Vault instance and provides a new level of encryption on top of the existing one. Before enabling the customer managed keys, there are a few prerequisites. First of all, you need to create a managed identity for your container registry. Then you need to create a key vault if you don't have one already, because it's where your encryption key will be saved. And of course, you need to enable the managed identity to access that key vault. To do so, just go inside the key vault, go to Access Policies, and then add access policy. You don't need to use a template because you need only 3 key permissions: get, unwrap key, and wrap key. You don't need any secret or certificate permission, so you can just select the principal. And the principal is the name of your managed identity, which in my case is this one. So you select it and you're done. Remember to click Save. Lastly, of course, you need to create a key for securing your Azure Container Registry. Just go to the Keys section, select the Generate Import. You can either leave it on Generate if you want the service to create a key for you, or if you have another one, you can import. Give it a name, change the params if you want, and create. Now we are ready to create the container registry. Let's search for container registry. Let's give it a name. Select the region and select the SKU. Let's move to next. Nothing to change at the networking level at this point, but I want to change the encryption. In fact, we want to enable here the customer managed keys. Just click on Enable, and then you will have to select your managed identity, and finally select the key from your key vault that you want to use for encryption. So just select the key vault and the key we created before. Of course, I only have one version, but if you have more versions, you can use the one you like. Click Select, and now we are ready to create it. After enabling the customer managed keys in your repositories, you will be able to perform the exact same operations you would do in a normal repository, but with a higher level of security. And of course, you will be able to change your key down the road. In your registry, just go to Encryption here under Settings and click on Change Key. Click now on Select the key, choose the same one, and then instead of select a version, let's click Create a new version. Again, we can generate or import one, and now select, reselect the managed identity, and save. Of course, you can also use another existing key if you want, or change key vault. There are a few things to note here. First, this feature is available only in the premium tier of Azure Container Registry. Second, you can enable the customer managed keys only at the repository creation. And third, when enabled, you cannot disable this feature anymore. Let's move now to private links. Container Registry had previously the ability to filter access based on firewalls rules, but now with private links, the endpoints are assigned private IPs, which means that you will be able to access that only from within your VNet and only using the Azure backbone. This of course means not only tighter security when accessing the Azure Container Registry directly, for example for pushing images, but also when communicating with other Azure services which are either in a VNet or that support private link, like AKS for example. You can set up a private link when you create a new registry in the networking tab we've skipped before, or you can add a private link to an existing registry. Just go to networking, private endpoints, and click plus private endpoint. Here you have to give it a name and select a region where your resources are. Click next. Here you need to select the resource type you're connecting to. In this case, it's a registry, so select registries. Select this registry and click next. Here you have to select the virtual network you want to connect to, and in this case is this one. And if that VNet has more subnets, you can also select the subnet you want to connect to. If your VNet is using a different DNS server, select no here. If not, just leave yes. And this will create for you a DNS zone for your private endpoint. At this point you can create. And when it's done, if we go back to the networking tab under private endpoints, we can see that our private endpoint is completely configured. Now your registry is accessible only from within that VNet and its peer VNets, if any. That also means though, that for pushing an image to that registry, you will need to be inside the VNet where private link is configured. Luckily, this is not a big deal if you're using Azure DevOps, because you can register one of the small VMs inside that VNet as an Azure Pipeline hosted agent, and then deploy your images or push your images to that registry from there. As long as, of course, you have Docker CLI or the Azure Container Registry CLI installed. Even though private links are the most secure way to access your registry, there are situations in which you may not be able to use them. For example, if you want to use Azure Container instances that, at least at the time of recording this video, does not support private link. In those scenarios, you can enable the dedicated data endpoints, which basically allows you to create firewalls rules based on fully qualified domain names instead of having a wildcard rule for all the storage accounts. You can enable dedicated data endpoints using either the Azure portal or the Microsoft Azure CLI. Just go again to the networking tab, but this time stay on the public access. And you can enable here the dedicated data endpoints. Just click on it and save. As you can see, the dedicated data endpoints follow a regional pattern with the registry name, the region, and then data.azurecr.io. And that's it, nothing else to do. And the cool part is that if you have a geo-replicated registry, enabling dedicated data endpoints will create the fully qualified domain names for all the regions where your registry is. Before we move to the next feature, and we still have my favorite two to review, hit the like button below if you think this video is helpful or you find it at least insightful. Right. Next one is a feature that has been GA'd pretty recently, but I have to say that I quite like it. I'm talking about the built-in Azure policies for Azure Container Registry. In my opinion, those policies are pretty important because the security capabilities are effective only if they are actually implemented. And the Azure built-in policies can verify and assure that all your Azure resources follow the best practices for security. And the best part is that there's no charge for using Azure policies. Assigning Azure policies is really easy. Just search for policy in the top bar, then go to assignments and finally click on assign policy. On the policy definition box, if you go on the ellipsis, you can then filter by, for example, container registry. And here you have the built-in policies. There are 5 built-in policies, but one is in preview and probably will be removed because it's about network service endpoints. That used to be a thing before the private link service existed. What you can do with these built-in policies is, for example, make sure that your container registry are encrypted using customer managed keys, or that the advanced threat protection is enabled, that container registry are not allowed on unrestricted network access, and finally, that your container registry should use private links. To enable any one of those, just click on one and click select. You can then change its name if you don't like it and decide if you want to enable or disable the policy. If you click on next, you can change some parameters, but in those cases, there's only audit or disabled. Let's click on create. And here you can see that our policy is being added to my assignments. Using Azure Policy, you can ensure that your registry stay compliant with your or your organization needs. And as I said before, I find it quite important. After assigning your policies, you can go to the Compliance tab to see whether your container registries implement your policies and the best practices or not. In my case, this is not compliant because only 1 out of 3 container registries actually implement the policies I assigned. And of course I can get more details clicking on it. And here I can see which container registries are not compliant with my policy. Clicking on one of those gives me even more details on which policies are not respected. In this case is the use of private links. Last but not least, let's talk about security for container images. If you're on Security Center standard tier, you can enable the container registry bundle. Just go on pricing and setting, and then under pricing tier, you have the container registry that you can enable. This optional feature brings deeper visibility into the vulnerabilities of the images in your registries and ensures that Security Center is ready to scan images that get pushed into the registry. Whenever an image is pushed to your container registry, Azure Security Center is notified via webhooks and automatically scans the image. The image is pulled from the registry and it's run in an isolated sandbox with the Quality Scanner, which extracts a list of known vulnerabilities. Security Center then filters and classifies the findings from the scanner. When an image is healthy, Security Center just marks it as such. Otherwise, it creates security recommendations for the issues to be resolved. When the scan completes, and typically this takes about 2 minutes, but it can be up to 15 minutes, findings are available as Security Center recommendations like this one you see on screen. This is how you secure your end-to-end container workflow. Alright, that's it for today. That was a lot of stuff. I hope you stayed with me for the whole time. Let me know in the comment section below if you're already using any of those features, or if not, how you take care of your container workflow security. Thanks so much for watching, hope you enjoyed. Hit the like button below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I see you in the next video here at CoderDave.